This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. The business is just gaining momentum. I mean, it felt like in 98, well, it can't get any bigger than this. But all the indicators as we march toward WrestleMania it's going to be even bigger. It's pretty unbelievable, is it not?
Yeah, it was a climb that I think that if you've been around the business and you believe in the cyclical nature of the business, this was a climb that, man, it was kept getting bigger and bigger, because I'll give you an analogy and a comparison is, for example, in the Mid-South, where they would build to the Superdome, but yet nothing was big enough to fill the Superdome of 60,000 plus. It was big enough that would take it to 30,000, which was 2 and 3 times larger than any arena in the territory. Yes. And that, don't think in any way, shape, or form I'm demeaning that, because that's fucking insanity back in those days. But here you're at a point where you're going to 20,000 seat arenas, you're going to stadiums, you're running all of these huge shows. You're packing them, and people are coming back for more and more and more and more. So there was a clamoring for content. There was a clamoring for more product, and the business was just on fire.
It's really just unbelievable. And we should mention Steve Austin defeating Mr. McMahon in the steel cage match earns him a title shot at WrestleMania. So now the stage is set. Now that The Rock has won the world title in this ladder match, he's the world champ, and he's going to defend against Steve Austin at WrestleMania 15. Is there any bigger main event than Rock Austin for WrestleMania?
No, it was without a doubt the 2 most popular and hottest stars in the industry at that time.
WrestleMania 15. Here we are. One of 3. I guess it's part 1 of a trilogy of Rock and Austin here at WrestleMania. This one in 99. Of course.
Yeah, we had all that planned in 97. We were ready to do that.
A year earlier, the go home episode of Raw on our way to WrestleMania 14, Austin would pin then Intercontinental Champion Rock. Fast forward a year later, and they're not on the Raw. They're in the main event here. Big deal. Steve Austin regains the world title, 16 minutes and 42 seconds. Jim Ross is brought out to announce the main event, gets a huge ovation. Austin, it has to have JR on the call, does it not?
Yeah, I think so. Big WrestleMania match, main event, put your main event announcer out there.
3.5 stars. Meltzer says it was a really good main event, but not at the level of heat of their Raw match last year, or even their tag match in San Jose, 2 weeks ago. But at this point, with a babyface Steve Austin, he is the icon here. He's the person he's the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. Rock's a heel. You got to have the babyface win in this era, right? You weren't having heels win in the main event of WrestleMania, not back then.
Well, Steve was red hot too at this point, and the rivalry for, this chapter of that rivalry was now for the WWE Championship. And before it had been for the Intercontinental Championship, it was a little different, and the chemistry that Rock and Austin have had since day one. Yeah, it was a happy moment. It was happy, joy.
15, 17, 19, the trilogy, WrestleMania, Rock Austin. Which of the 3 did you prefer?
I'm probably going to be in the minority here, but I preferred this one.
Really?
Here's why. Yes. Well, here's why. I love 17. So WrestleMania 17 to me is the best WrestleMania of all time. But I didn't like the Mr. McMahon and Steve turn in WrestleMania.
Right.
The last one was special, and it was great, very sentimental to me.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the match and as far as the story and everything going into it, this was the best match. The first one for WrestleMania. The second one had probably a better story. And the third one was more sentimental. But to me, this one was special because it was the first one, I think.
They're going to do a rematch the very next month at Backlash. And this seems to be one of their forgotten pay-per-view matches. They also wrestled, at the, D-Generation X pay-per-view in December of 97, where Austin would pin Rock in a few minutes to retain. But here at Backlash is the main event. It's for the world title, 17 minutes and 7 seconds. And early in the show, Shane McMahon is going to vow on the name of his beloved grandfather that if Austin has Rock pinned, he would count fairly. And Vince is mad, but Stephanie assured everyone that if Shane used Vince Sr.'s name, he'd be fair. And I guess that sort of guaranteed that he wouldn't. You know the story though, 4.5 stars. Ultimately, Rock's going to hit Austin with the belt. Hebner's going to run out. Austin kicks out. Austin then hits the stunner and a belt shot. This time Hebner counts 3. Austin retains, but afterwards Vince comes to the ring with Austin's belt, the smoking skull, if you will, doesn't hand him the belt, but puts it on the mat for Austin to pick up and celebrate. Then the Ministry are backstage where Vince's limo is, where Stephanie was. And the cops tell the cops tell the driver to drive away. Stephanie doesn't want to leave until her dad comes back. And as the show ends, we get that famous shot where it's the Undertaker behind the wheel. So maybe that's the reason it's forgotten, because of the big Undertaker finish. But 4 stars, 4.25 stars rather, from Meltzer. He liked it even better than WrestleMania. Why do you think this is like the forgotten pay-per-view match? Is it because of the whole Stephanie Undertaker scene?
Yeah. And I think that when you're looking at just matches, again, this is the argument. Story will outweigh, just matches every day of the week.
Right.
So to the mass audience and the mass viewer, they were more interested in the story, and they remembered the story. You're usually going to remember the last thing you see. So going back to Taker driving away in the limousine, that's what they remembered.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.